I'm talking to arguably the most popular scientist in the universe ever, Professor Neil deGrasse Tyson.
For months, astronomers reassured us that 3I Atlas was nothing more than a fleeting spectacle, an interstellar traveler destined to sweep past Mars and vanish into the abyss. A harmless flyby, they said. But the universe rarely deals in harmless events, and now James Webb, our sharpest, most relentless eye in the cosmic dark, has revealed data that tears that story apart. The numbers don't lie. The trajectory has shifted, and for the first time, whispers are echoing through the scientific community. Whispers of the one possibility no one dared to utter. 3I Atlas may not just pass Mars, it may collide with it. But this isn't just about a comet gone astray. The evidence suggests precision, tiny bursts of gas like clockwork, micro-maneuvers that hint at intention. What we are watching does not move like a rock. It behaves like a craft. The deeper we dive into the Webb data, the more chilling the picture becomes. 3I Atlas is not simply drifting, it is steering, adjusting, aiming, and its path points directly at the red planet. Whatever this visitor is, its mission is far from over. When it was first spotted on July 1st, astronomers logged it as just another fast-moving blur with a shimmering coma, racing at nearly 87 kilometers per second relative to the Sun. At such staggering speed, it could cross the Earth-Moon distance in less than 80 minutes. What truly shocked scientists wasn't the breakneck speed of 3I Atlas. It was its unsettling behavior. Normally, comets entering the inner solar system either fragment, slow, or stabilize. But this one defied every expectation. Instead of calming, it began to accelerate, subtly at first, then with eerie consistency. Even more disturbing, its trajectory began to tighten, as though unseen hands were adjusting its aim. And then came the glow. The coma, the hazy shroud of gas and dust enveloping the object, suddenly doubled in brightness within mere weeks. Spectral readings revealed violent spikes of ultraviolet radiation and CO2, outgassing at levels no comet had ever displayed before. To observers, it was no longer behaving like an icy drifter. It looked like a weapon, a guided missile cloaked in a comet's disguise. But the most chilling revelation came when Webb's deep field sensors pierced through the haze. They didn't just detect random jets of sublimating ice. They recorded rhythmic bursts, perfectly timed at 17-minute intervals. Not chaos, not chance, a pattern, a signal, a maneuver. As Webb, Gemini South, and NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory synchronized their data, the story darkened. What had been dismissed as a near miss evolved into something far more dangerous. A projected flyby of just 1.95 million kilometers from Mars, a razor-thin margin on a cosmic scale. And worse still, models revealed that a mere 10 kilometers per second of extra thrust, less than what those measured pulses could already provide, might nudge its path into the unthinkable, a direct strike on the red planet. Imagine that. A single nudge, a whisper of thrust, and Mars turns into ground zero. This level of control is impossible for a natural rock. It's as if 3I Atlas is firing its own outgassing like micro-thrusters, fine-tuning its approach the way a spacecraft would. Even worse, those bursts line up exactly with Mars's orbital plane. Scientists have moved from passive tracking to active surveillance. They're not watching a random visitor, they're watching a target. The impact window tightens between September 19th and 30th. Any one violent outburst could be the moment that tips the balance. This isn't fringe speculation anymore. Mainstream researchers are sounding the alarm. Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb and his colleagues published a bold paper. 3I Atlas might be an engineered probe. The data gives weight to that claim. Radar returns from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and Goldstone complexes showed metallic echoes, hard, reflective signatures, not the soft, watery returns typical of cometary ice. Insiders at NASA describe the radar reflections as unlike anything on record. Amateur deep exposure images add a haunting detail. Thin, green, needle-like streams converging toward Mars, pulsing in lockstep with the measured exhaust vents. The pattern is too precise to be random. Put it all together, and the conclusion is stark. This object is not behaving like any natural body we've ever cataloged. Loeb paints a chilling possibility. 3I Atlas could be aiming Mars on purpose, crash it, or worse, deliver something inside it. Probes, signals, spores, whatever its cargo may be. This is not random chance. Mars is being approached with surgical focus, and humanity watches a procedure we barely comprehend. What if it strikes? The scale is almost impossible to imagine. With a mass roughly estimated at 10 billion tons and an encounter speed near 57 kilometers per second relative to Mars, the impact would release energy on the order of 2 million megatons. That's thousands of times more powerful than the largest nuclear blast ever set off on Earth. The resulting crater would be colossal, about 60 kilometers across and 5 kilometers deep, flinging debris into Mars orbit and beyond. Some fragments could be hurled into interplanetary space and, over time, even sent toward Earth. But the threat goes far beyond flying rock. Mars hosts a constellation of scientific assets: rovers, orbiters, probes, and long-running experiments that archive climate records and hunt for signs of life across decades. An impact wouldn't merely destroy hardware. It could erase generations of research, sever communications, and risk biological contamination of the Martian surface and atmosphere. The planetary defense community is alarmed. ESA, ROS, COSMOS, CNSA, and JAXA have opened emergency discussions, not about an invading armada, but about a single object acting disturbingly like a vehicle. For decades, scientists have speculated that Mars might not be dead at all, that beneath its rust-colored crust, life could still linger. Subsurface lakes, frozen microbes, entire ecosystems entombed beneath permafrost, waiting in silence. That mystery is why we've sent wave after wave of rovers, orbiters, and landers. But if 3I Atlas slams into Mars, all of those questions take a sinister turn. The heat alone would vaporize vast swaths of the surface, but the shockwaves would rip open deeper layers of the Martian crust. Layers we've never drilled into, reservoirs we've never touched. And if 3I Atlas is carrying organics of its own, or something worse, synthetic biology encoded into its exhaust trails, the collision could fuse two entirely separate evolutionary lines: Earth-independent life, meeting Martian biology in a planetary-scale genetic experiment. Some biologists already have a name for this: panspermia in reverse. Not life drifting outward from Mars toward Earth, but something seeded into Mars, deliberately. Which raises the terrifying question, what if destruction isn't the mission? What if Mars itself is the laboratory, and the comet is a delivery system designed to awaken it? As the object closed in on its nearest point, the James Webb Telescope locked on for one last desperate scan. For 2 full days, the results were locked under classification. Only a carefully edited portion was ever released to the public, but leaks from inside the Webb project whispered a darker truth. The NIR spec and MIRI instruments detected the fingerprints of synthetic polymers, molecules eerily similar to Earth-made plastics, even carbon nanotubes, interlaced with the natural cometary gases. These are not features that form by chance in vacuum or during passive heating. These are engineered structures. James Webb spectrographs flagged persistent isotopic oddities, unusual ratios of carbon and hydrogen that match nothing born inside our solar system. In short, 3I Atlas carries materials that should not exist in space, and every inch of that contraband is streaking toward a world that might still harbor life. Webb quietly shared its data with the major space agencies. Emergency task forces were stood up, not because anyone had a way to stop the object, but because time was collapsing and the question of, what is this, became urgent. Then the unexpected happened. The usual public briefings stopped. NASA's press cadence went silent. Telemetry windows from Perseverance and China's Tianwen-1 showed gaps. Red flags multiplied. When analysts chased the trail, the story got stranger. Internal chatter and a later whistleblower leak revealed a chilling phrase in a classified transmission: impact protocol initiated. What does that mean? No clear answer exists, but insiders say encrypted uplinks were broadcast to every functioning asset at Mars. Commands and beacons fired from Earth-based stations to the spacecraft and rovers still awake on the surface. Why would we flip those switches if we can't deflect or intercept 3I Atlas? One possibility: we didn't turn systems on to protect Mars. We turned them on to prepare it. If the object responds to energy signatures, orbital beacons, or encoded pulses, then activating our hardware could be the moment of contact. By broadcasting those signals, we may have moved from silent observers to active participants. Worse, if 3I Atlas is semi-autonomous or intelligent, it now knows we are awake, listening, and responding. The lines between observer and actor are blurring, and with each transmission we send, whatever is behind that object learns more about us. A team of cryptographers at the SETI Institute did the unthinkable. They took 3I Atlas's trajectory, its time of closest approach, velocity, and gravitational vectors, the exact numbers every astronomer already had, and converted them into binary. Then they ran the result through compression routines used for deep space messaging. What surfaced wasn't noise. It was structure, repeating blocks, a sequence of numerical intervals that map to atomic numbers: 6, 8, 14, 26, carbon, oxygen, silicon, iron, the raw ingredients of both life and machines. Between those building blocks appeared prime number cadences and spacings that match recursive messaging protocols. This was not random cosmic arithmetic. It was patterned language. Put plainly, the flight path itself may be a message in motion, not sent by radio, but encoded in behavior, in timing, in presence. If so, we aren't merely watching a path toward Mars. We are witnessing a communicative act. The impact window becomes punctuation in that message. A strike reads as one sentence. A miss reads differently. Each outcome would mean something deliberate, written in kinetics across the sky. And then the coincidence that froze scientists in their tracks. As projections tightened, 3I Atlas's updated course threaded a narrow corridor that runs straight over Elysium. Elysium is a geologically young region of Mars, famous for its haunting symmetry. Satellite surveys have long noted its concentric ridges, its spiraling flows, its terrain etched with forms that echo the Fibonacci sequence itself. These features were odd, yes, but they were filed away as curiosities, until now. Because the updated vector of 3I Atlas's descent intersects with uncanny precision. Its path leads directly into a circular depression less than 3.5 kilometers wide. This basin has no impact signature, no volcanic residue, no explanation. Yet at its center sits a deposit of crystalline silicates with properties unseen anywhere else on Mars. Under sunlight, these crystals flash pulses of infrared light at fixed intervals, like a coded heartbeat. For years, most dismissed them as geological quirks. But now, the question takes on an edge of dread. Was this basin a natural feature? Or was it placed, a beacon, a rendezvous site? And if so, who set the coordinates? Just as James Webb reacquired 3I Atlas from an alternate vantage point, another anomaly emerged. Behind the object, trailing at a steady 0.07 astronomical units, was a second shadow. It wasn't debris, it wasn't dust or gas. Radar passed through it, infrared found no warmth, yet photometric readings showed a consistent drop in starlight, moving in lockstep with the primary body. Something darker, something unseen. As though tethered by an invisible thread, a silent companion marched behind 3I Atlas. The shadow held a perfect, unchanging gap, untouched by gravity, unbothered by acceleration. Plotted in polar coordinates, it traced a flawless orbital path. Something was following 3I Atlas, not escorting it, not attacking it, but precisely mirroring its motion. Speculation exploded across observatories: a secondary body, an autonomous drone, a gravitational echo, or something far stranger. Researchers began to speak in new terms: a field, a memory, a protocol. Gradually, a frightening idea took root. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't the principal actor at all, but merely a carrier, a delivery vehicle for a more elusive presence. For the first time, teams considered that the visible object might be masking a hidden system riding in its wake. With every eye locked on the expected approach, another pattern unfurled. When scientists mapped the object's full flight, plotting its perihelions, close passes of Earth and Mars, and timing against solar alignments, the dates didn't scatter randomly, they clustered. Each critical alignment landed on resonance points, orbital harmonics whose rhythms have been measured and mythologized for millennia. September 23rd, October 5th, November 11th. These are not casual calendar notes. They correspond to rare gravitational synchronizations that repeat in long cycles, 54 years in length, according to the math. The last widely cited event that matched such a configuration during a cometary passage, the Tunguska explosion of 1908. The implication hit like a cold wave. How could a wayward interstellar visitor arrive precisely at moments charged with astronomical meaning? Unless it wasn't wandering at all, unless it was timing itself against a cosmic metronome, following a clockwork schedule that no natural process should be able to keep. This was not random chance. This was a deliberate pattern, written in orbital motion and timing. Patterns in the sky are rarely accidental. They're the fingerprints of design. One final revelation pushed scientists into a place once dismissed as taboo: consciousness in motion. A neurocosmology team at Princeton, studying brain synchrony during deep meditative states, struck something uncanny when volunteers were played the pulsation frequencies from 3I Atlas's light curve. Specifically, the 17-minute gas vent rhythm produced more than a beat. Subjects in separate rooms, isolated, unaware of one another, began to lock in together, their brainwaves synchronized across participants. This was not simple resonance, it was neurological entrainment, as if the pattern carried a cognitive key. If a signal can nudge human minds from millions of kilometers away, what does that imply about its source? Could 3i Atlas be neither mere rock nor a routine machine, but a thought in motion, an embedded awareness traveling on a trajectory? A message you don't decode with instruments but feel, a seed that activates the moment comprehension happens. If so, a physical strike on Mars might be only the surface event. The true change may already be unfolding within us as collective fear and focus intensify. A quiet band of archaeoastronomers began cross-checking 3i Atlas's path against ancient sky maps. Not only Greek or Western charts, but Babylonian clay records, Mayan codices, and Tibetan cosmological scrolls. Patterns echoed across cultures and epochs, motifs tied to celestial cycles and ritual timing. What if those old maps weren't myth but memory, records of rhythms someone or something has been following for millennia? What they uncovered shattered belief itself. Across cultures, from the Mayans to the Tibetans, a recurring motif emerged, the flame serpent. Ancient records describe a celestial body descending from the outer dark, curling unnaturally close to the sun, and then striking its gaze upon the red god, Mars. The same serpentine arc appeared in stela carvings, cave etchings, and ritual scrolls, but one artifact eclipsed them all, a pre-Incan calendar stone unearthed in Anaco. Etched upon its face were 4 radiating lines bursting from Mars after the serpent's descent. When scanned with modern photogrammetry and overlaid against James Webb's projected debris models, the match was staggering. The stone's rays aligned perfectly with the expected dispersion pattern of a Mars impact. The implications are staggering. Someone foresaw this, not decades ago, but millennia. 3i Atlas may not be a new arrival at all. It may be part of a repeating cycle, history replaying itself. And Mars, far from being the final destination, could be the ignition point, the trigger. Then came a discovery that turned speculation into alarm. ESA's ExoMars Trace gas orbiter, silent for days in power-saving mode, suddenly reported a spike in xenon isotopes in the Martian atmosphere. At first blamed on solar activity, the chemistry told a different story. The xenon wasn't descending from space, it was rising from below. The source traced back to Cerberus Fossae, one of the most unstable volcanic rift zones on Mars. Instruments recorded seismic surges, fractures opening deep beneath the crust, and subsurface temperatures climbing by 3 full degrees Kelvin. For a planet thought to be cooling and dead, this was an impossibility, and in a twist that left the scientific community. Silence fell in the control rooms when the magnetometers spoke, a weak, structured magnetic pulse, repeating every 17 minutes, the same cadence as 3i Atlas's gas vents. Suddenly, the question wasn't only, will it hit, but has Mars already begun to answer? It looked less like a threat and more like an activation. Something buried in the crust, dormant for eons, had started to stir. With every hour that passed, the idea of impact shifted from a single violent moment to a larger unfolding in time. The Webb team dug into the light curves and found something stranger still. The fluctuations no longer matched simple comet spin. They formed a layered, recursive timing. 7 pulses, a pause, 3 pulses, a pause, 13 pulses, and then the pattern repeated. Those numbers weren't random when mapped out. They wound into a Fibonacci-based spiral, the same math we see in living growth, memory patterns, even the coiling of DNA. Mathematicians and cryptographers joined forces, parsing the sequence, and the result chilled them. 3i Atlas wasn't just broadcasting signals, it was transmitting time. Not seconds or hours, but cycles and phases, beats that aligned with orbital resonance and deeper rhythms. The object wasn't merely arriving, it was synchronizing. The countdown people feared wasn't simply counting toward impact. It appeared to be counting toward resonance, a meeting of energy, orbit, and perhaps something like awareness. If that timing completes, the effect might not be an explosion. It could be a shift of perception, of systems, maybe even of the rules that bind our understanding of reality. In the final 72 hours before the projected impact, something extraordinary rippled across the instruments. A low-frequency signal, infrasonic, beyond the range of human hearing, but unmistakable in its structured waveform. And it wasn't descending from the void, nor bouncing from Mars' thin atmosphere. It was coming from beneath Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system, long believed extinct. Orbiters from ESA, CNSA, and NASA captured it independently, a harmonic frequency repeating with uncanny precision. When analyzed, it matched nothing known to geology, volcanism, or atmospheric resonance. And yet, when scientists rendered it as a spectrogram, the shape was undeniable, a spiral, the very same waveform James Webb had recorded, radiating from 3i Atlas during its solar flyby. The reaction was silence, dread. What does it mean when a planet answers an interstellar object before it even arrives? Is Olympus Mons simply resonating, or is it communicating? Has Mars been waiting, dormant, for this exact moment? And if so, what happens when it finally opens its eyes? As countdown clocks slipped into their final hours, another anomaly surfaced, this one hidden in forgotten archives. A decades-old thermal scan from the Mars Odyssey orbiter, dismissed at the time as a calibration error. It showed a faint warmth beneath the Utopia Planitia region, brushed aside as reflection noise. But when the same ground was rescanned in the wake of 3I Atlas's approach, the truth surfaced. The pattern didn't just return, it amplified. What first looked like a hint now matched an ancient glyph carved deep into the stone walls of the D and M foci. Barely visible to the naked eye, the carving showed a descending spiral, striking a perfect circle, with two spheres locked in alignment at the point of contact. The meaning was enormous. Mars might not only remember geology, it could be carrying an encoded celestial record. What if Mars wasn't simply a world, but a living archive? And 3I Atlas the playback key. Then the impossible happened. High-resolution frames from ESA's Mars Express caught motion in the dust, south of Noctis Labyrinthus. Not wind, not rover tracks, but something rising from beneath, arranging itself in the loose sand. Two flawless concentric ovals appeared and slowly grew, as though sculpted upward from the planet's interior. Over 4 hours, those rings stretched and shifted until they revealed a single, unmistakable figure, an eye, tilted by exactly 23.5 degrees, the same angle as Earth's axial tilt. The image was a mirror and a message, an eye oriented to our planet, calibrated to our geometry. Researchers raced to explain it and found no natural answer. Mars had blinked, literally and deliberately. Something under the crust was not only active, but self-aware enough to reference our orientation and our signals. It knew the math of our orbit, the tilt of our axis, and it responded in a way that felt informed, precise, and intended. If this event had been anticipated, if those markings, the glyphs, and now the waking patterns were arranged long before humanity ever existed, then the encounter isn't merely physical. It's a meeting with a memory designed to be read, and perhaps a message meant for minds that can recognize geometry, time, and intent. In one of the final readings before the signal blackout, the James Webb Space Telescope tore apart the molecular trail left by 3I Atlas. The spectral breakdown revealed something no one expected. Woven chains of volatile organics, and threaded through them, a repeating strand of nucleo-like sequences. These strands looked eerily like RNA, familiar in form, but not Earth-made. Not a match to any known biology, yet unmistakably organized for replication. A foreign, prebiotic code floating in the comet's vapor. As teams mapped the sequences, an even darker possibility surfaced. This wasn't inert chemistry. Parts of the pattern responded. Segments of the molecule matched human-designed encryption keys. Other stretches echoed musical intervals, structures that imply interpretation, not accident. It was as if the molecule was built to interact with intelligence, to change when read. This was no passive cosmic dust. It behaved like a living code, engineered not merely to survive the void, but to speak through it. Life sent as language rather than cells. As 3I Atlas swung into its final arc, networks around the globe overlaid one last celestial alignment. Mars, Earth, and the Sun briefly fell into a dead straight line, and 3I Atlas was set to cross that axis at the precise moment of solar transit. That geometry was not random. If the molecular strand was designed to be interpreted, the timing and the lineup looked suspiciously like delivery instructions. This wasn't just an orbital coincidence. The projection lines up with ancient megalithic alignments on Earth. Stonehenge, Nan Madol, Nya Tati, Wakan, each pointing to the same triad of celestial angles. For millennia, people raised monuments that echo this geometry, whether by instinct, ritual, or instruction. Now that same configuration is replaying across the heavens, not as myth, but as mechanism. Mars becomes the red witness, Earth the awakened observer, the Sun the eternal source, and 3I, Atlas the keystone, falling into a planetary lock. This is not a random rock, it is a final position that completes a circuit. When it locks into place, something will change, not somewhere distant, but within us. We looked up and comforted ourselves with a simple story. A comet, a wandering fragment from a forgotten corner of space. We named it 3I Atlas. We tracked its numbers, mapped its arc, and told ourselves it was random. Then James Webb's data tore that story apart. What Webb revealed was not chaos, it was ritual. The object doesn't merely travel, it performs. It aligns, it answers, and as it threads the solar system, every planet replies, whispering back signals, pulses, and codes. Mars doesn't only react, it remembers. The planet reads like a record, and now something is playing back the memory. The dust of the craters, the pulse of gravity itself. And now, with one final, precise maneuver, 3I Atlas has taken position. Not to obliterate, but to complete. A pattern, a countdown, a convergence. Mars is the stage, Earth is the audience. We were never meant to watch from the cheap seats. We were written into the performance. Every telescope we raised, every signal we sent, every theory we dismissed as fantasy, it was all received. The final act may not be a crater. It may not be an explosion at all. Whatever unfolds has already begun to rewrite what we believed about Mars, about life, about ourselves. In the end, 3I Atlas did not come from our backyard. It came for our attention. And now that it has it, the question is no longer what it will do to Mars, it's what it will do to us. Will this moment change our thinking, our stories, our very sense of place in the cosmos? Or is this an invitation whose answer we must choose to accept or ignore? This is not idle speculation, it's a summons. The dust settles, the gravity hums, the countdown clicks toward an unknown hour. And we are no longer passive witnesses, but participants in a design far older than our myths. If this stirred something in you, do the thing that keeps this conversation alive. Like, subscribe, share, and drop your thought in the comments. Do you believe 3I Atlas was an accident or an invitation? Turn on notifications and see you on the next one.